Hey everyone, Jay Whitner here with Space Headlines. We do a quick recap every week of what's going on in space, and today we'll be talking about the fourth week of October 2019. Our first item is SpaceX. Gwynne Shotwell made some comments and interviews at the IAC, and one of the big pieces of information was that they are predicting that Starlink internet is going to go into operation next year. That they think they need about 6 to 8 launches of the Starlink satellites to have enough to be operational, and that 24 launches are what it's going to take to have global service. Now, in the future, deployment launch operations will be conducted by the Starship, but for now, the Falcon 9 is the workhorse that's going to do the early flights to get Starlink up and running. Blue Origin has stepped up in response to NASA's Artemis mission to put together a team to handle the lunar lander problem. And they have some really interesting organizations that they are bringing together to do this. Blue Origin is waving the baton, but Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Draper are also involved in the effort. The role that Blue Origin is playing, in addition to the overall coordination, is to do the descent element. Lockheed Martin is going to do the ascent element, and Northrop Grumman is going to do the transfer element. Draper is going to work on avionics, and they're trying to meet the timeline established by the White House for the human lunar return, the Artemis mission. In advance of all of this, NASA is working on learning more about the ice at the moon's south pole. So the plan is they're going to send a robot they're calling Viper to the moon's south pole in 2022. This is more or less the size of a golf cart, and they want to see how much ice there is, how the ice is characterized. It has an arm that's like, I think about 1 meter long to probe for ice beneath the surface. So we should know and get the ground truth of ice at the moon's south pole, which will be amazing. This has been really one of the big missing pieces of lunar development, is to get actual treads on the ground to see what's going on with the ice. SpaceX hopes to land Starship on the moon by 2022. This would be pretty amazing to see this giant craft landing on the moon's surface. So they want to land on the moon by 2022. Before this, they get to orbit. They're actually hoping to get to orbit around Earth in a year or so, to land on the moon by 2022, and then to be in a position to deliver cargo to the moon in support of Artemis operations. And this is from Gwynne Shotwell's remarks. More from Gwynne Shotwell at another conference. This is from the Barron 2019 Investment Conference. Gwynne Shotwell says that the Starship can carry about 400 Starlink satellites into orbit with a single flight. This compares to about 60 satellites that the Falcon 9 is able to carry, so roughly a factor of 6 or 7 times the number of satellites per flight. So it's understandable, based on that number, how rapidly they'll be able to get the constellation operational, and also the filings they've been making for approvals for vast number of satellites, because they'll have the capability to deploy vast numbers of satellites. And that will provide more bandwidth, more redundancy, and so forth. Avum is developing a new launch system. This is for small payloads, and they're sort of taking advantage of a little bit of a gap left by Vector Aerospace's problems that they've experienced. So what you're looking at is a combination of a drone and a 2-stage rocket. This is for very small satellites, roughly 100-kilogram class satellites. So you've got a turbojet-powered drone with a 2-stage rocket attached. That's the basic idea. This will be a very responsive launch system, able to deploy on next to no notice. That this is obviously of interest to the military, and that is one reason that the first big contract is an Air Force launch contract for $5 million. Because the Air Force would love this, to be able to provide a satellite and have it launched potentially the same day would be an awesome capability for the military. SpaceX has moved their Mark I Starship prototype to the launch pad. So this is in Texas at the Boca Chica facility there, and they have an upcoming test flight planned. The goal of the test flight is to reach 20 kilometers of altitude, which is a heck of a test for the first test of the real prototype, not counting the hopper. So they're going to go for approximately 20-kilometer height and then return for a landing. They'll get a lot of data from all that. Hopefully it will go smoothly. And I don't believe that a date has yet been announced for the timing of the flight test. That's it for our coverage, covering the 4th week of October 2019. Hope you enjoyed our show. We'll be back soon with the first week of November. And we'll talk to you then. Take care.